and welcome to The Horrible Idea, a podcast about horror movies. I'm Stephanie, and wow, am I glad I never joined a sorority.
And I'm Jack, and in this episode, the podcast is coming from inside of the house.
So each week we pick a scary movie, we talk about it. If you have a movie you think might scare us, specifically me, I'm a big scaredy cat, hit us up on Instagram at The Horrible Idea or on Twitter at HorriblePod.
We were going to do the new Vince Vaughn thriller Freaky, but until our stimulus checks come in, we can't afford $20 each. So, in the holiday spirit, we're going to talk about 1974's Canadian holiday classic slasher film, Black Christmas. Since it's on Shudder, and we already pay for that. Tell us about this movie, Stephanie.
Yeah, so this came out October 11th, 1974. Not quite Christmas, but during the creepy holiday season, Halloween season. So it was written by A. Roy Moore and directed by Bob Clark with a budget of $620,000 and a box office of $4.1 million. So, pretty great hit.
Yeah. IMDb gave it a 7.2 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it a 71%, and Rotten Tomatoes audience gave it a 75%. Which, I think this is considered one of the classics.
Yeah, I read that, at the time, it kind of got some bad reviews, but then with, a reappraisal,
right,
a lot of people have been like, no, this is, one of the foundational horror texts or whatever.
Yeah, and like a lot of those early films, for some reason, like the Last House on the Left was like this as well. It was originally released in America as Silent Night, Evil Night, and then it was released in Canada and everywhere else as Black Christmas, and then in the U.S. they changed it back to Black Christmas and re-released it. And then when it was released on TV, it was called Stranger in the House.
So I read that, and I read that they were afraid that people would think it was like a blaxploitation film.
Yeah, that's weird.
And that's why they changed it. But then kind of they realized, oh, okay, no, people aren't concerned about that. So
yeah, and
interesting though.
The original title was Stop Me.
Oh no. Well, I guess that's probably one of those things Billy says.
Yeah, he does say that a bunch of times. And a bunch of people in this movie went on to be famous, or roundabout famous. The two that stuck out for me were Margot Kidder, who of course is OG Lois Lane, and Keir Dullea.
Dullea, I don't know.
Well, he was David Bowman in 2000. He wasn't much else, but he was David Bowman in 2001. I remembered that.
Space Odyssey. Yeah. A classic, if there ever was one.
Yeah. Oh, and Olivia Hussey? Olivia Hussey.
Oh, I just thought it was Hussey.
Olivia Hussey, yeah. Who I believe may have been the first pair of breasts I saw on film in Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet, in which she played, I believe, Juliet.
Whoever is maintaining the horrible podcast Wikipedia,
right,
should do a counter for whether or not you mention breasts in every episode of The Horrible Idea.
I believe I do. I try to.
I think you have a 100% batting average at this point. So one thing that you had written down here was about John Saxton, who plays a sheriff, one of the cops.
Yeah. That
he was in Enter the Dragon. He was also the cop in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
So
I like to think it's a shared universe.
Yeah, he's got a pretty good horror pedigree there.
For horror movies of that time, these cops, well, some of them were pretty okay. And there was that one guy who was a complete idiot, but...
Yeah, I mean, there's always at least one inept cop in, every horror movie. Which I think, like I said last week, is a good, kind of thing that they're doing, because it explains away... kind of why people don't call the cops. Although they did in this one.
Yeah, the cops were pretty involved. So had you heard of this film?
No, I mean, I feel like, so I had seen it we have like a big spreadsheet of horror movies that we might do someday, and I had seen it in there, but beyond seeing it on that list, no, had never heard of it.
Yeah.
But I was fascinated to discover that I've always known, or, feel like I've always known the line, the call is coming from inside the house. It's just sort of one of those things that permeates like the culture, even if you haven't seen the movie. And I know it's been in a couple of other movies at this point. But I had no idea it was from this.
Right.
And so, yeah, did you grow up knowing Margaret Kidder from Superman? Because I've never seen that, but kind of coincidentally, I just watched Sisters, which is a kind of early Brian De Palma movie, last night.
Right.
And she's the main character in that, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I grew up in the 80s and was born in the 70s, so I have seen all of the Superman films many, many, many times. And the weirdness of that Lois Lane, who is, Lois Lane is supposed to be kind of tough reporter, but she does carry over some of the weird, like, gruff-voiced, hard-drinking Margot Kidderness. That was that I remember being very strange. But yeah, I had never seen this, probably heard of it, but I did read a lot about it in reading about Halloween, the movie, and some other slashers. A lot of them bring up Black Christmas as like the first sort of, not the first thriller or slasher, but the one that sort of coalesced a lot of the contemporary slasher things. It was like this,
right?
And then Halloween, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then it's sort of like, well, in a different order, but yeah, that's just sort of like the lineage.
Yeah, and didn't this come out the same year as Texas Chainsaw, or right about there?
Yeah,
I know the earliest movie we've done at this point is The Last House on the Left, but this is relatively early as well.
Yeah, this is 2 years later.
1974 is
2 years later, and then
pretty early.
It's like that, and yeah, it's all happening. And
I definitely felt some like Psycho vibes, like the movie Psycho in this, which I feel like that's beyond this era where kind of the slasher starts to come in. I feel like Psycho is kind of like the wave that had influence. I mean, it continues to be influential, but influenced a lot of these movies.
Absolutely. So let us break down this plot.
Yeah, kick it off.
Oh yeah, I wrote this plot breakdown. It's just before the holidays at Pi Kappa Sigma sorority house, and the women of the sorority are having a little party before they head off to their families. As they drink and be merry, and these girls like to drink, a stranger climbs up to the roof and hides away in their attic and starts making obscene and disturbing phone calls to the women downstairs.
As people depart for the holiday vacations, those remaining start disappearing. The police tap the phone, hoping to catch the caller, who they think is also the killer. One by one, the remaining women are murdered until only Jess remains. Only then do they learn the call is coming from inside the house.
It is coming inside the house, which, as you said, is from this movie. That's kind of where it started. And then a couple of years later, When a Stranger Calls kind of got even more into that sort of trope.
Yeah, because like when I looked it up, because I was trying to figure out like, was this the first movie that it was in? I saw a couple of sources citing When a Stranger Calls, and I was like, well, that came out later.
Right.
And so then the source of all knowledge, Wikipedia, confirmed that it was this movie.
And my source of all knowledge, tvtropes.com, also confirmed.
Well, yeah, we'll make it works cited for this.
Indeed, a very thorough bibliography. So who were your favorite characters? There were a bunch of characters.
There were a lot. So, I mean, probably my top favorite was Mrs. Mack. She was amazing. I love that she had a book in the like library that had a cutaway for a liquor bottle. She also had one hidden in the tank on the toilet. And I was a little bit like, I guess she's hiding it because she's supposed to be like the responsible house mom. But I was like, all these girls are getting drunk. I don't know why she has to.
Maybe she's hiding
stealth.
it from. I think she's hiding it from Barb, who would just drink all of it.
Yeah, good point. Good point. But I loved her. Like when the girls give her Christmas present, it's this hideous muumuu, and she's like facing away from them and facing the camera, and she makes this face like, "Oh brother," and then she turns around. She's like, "I love it." But, like, the outfit she's wearing at that point, I was like, I think she looks pretty great.
Yeah.
And she has that cute little hat on. They did her dirty with that muumuu.
She had a great line, though. When she holds it up, she goes, I have about as much use for this as a chastity belt.
Oh, my God, yeah. She has so many great lines. And then I also really love, this is kind of a niche pick, but I also really love that granny on that poster that's like giving the middle finger. I was like, I want that poster for my apartment. What about you?
My favorite character is Chris's jacket. Do you remember Chris is
Yes. He has an amazing jacket.
The first girl who dies is boyfriend, and he comes in this like bear looking fur coat. It's just like,
I know, it's amazing.
So ridiculous. But second to that jacket is Margot Kidder's award-winning Barb performance. That award being,
which award did she win?
My heart. Barb is just hardcore. She's 26 when she filmed this. I guess she's playing like a college student. She sounds like she's like 45 and lives on like Camel, no filters, and Southern Comfort. She is
smoking throughout like almost the entire movie.
Absolutely. My favorite is she's in the police station and she just takes a can of beer out of her pocket and like cracks it open and starts drinking it.
She also has asthma.
She does.
And yet is a chain smoker. So like life choices here, but she was great.
She's great. She's always drunk and she radiates a chaotic bisexual energy that I am impressed with. And she has pretty much her and Mrs. Mack have all the best lines.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think we both noted that our least favorite character, probably even more than the killer, is Peter.
Oh my God! First of all, I love the way you said his name, Peter.
Well, because that's the way Jess has like I think Argentinian.
She's got like a British. Oh, is it Argentinian?
She is.
It's sort of like.
Yeah. But she keeps calling him Peter.
Yeah, he fucking sucked. He was like threatening her because she wanted to get an abortion. He literally said, like, you'll be sorry or you'll regret this or something like that. And just was generally like a loser. Like, he was like, I love the piano so much. This is so important to me. And then he's like, no, I'm going to drop out. My apartment's too small. Let's get married.
His sort of half turtleneck sweater, his hair, his avant-garde piano styling. He was just an edgelord, and he was all in.
I hated him. And spoiler alert, he dies in the end.
He does.
And it's like revealed that he was not the actual killer, but I was like, good riddance.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sad. I don't feel bad for him.
Yeah.
He was a dick, so I wasn't sad. So what were some of your favorite, we mentioned that Barb has some great one-liners.
Barb's a favorite. Yeah, this movie was filled with really, really weird lines. I don't know if we'll get into actually, like, the phone calls in this movie are probably the most vulgar thing we've seen in any movie we've watched so far, including Last House on the Left.
That was, yeah. I mean, I was very upset by that phone call.
They dropped some C-bombs, FYI.
Yeah.
But the line we both listed as being ridiculous and amazing was, now Barb is on the phone with her mother, who just told her, like...
She's not even on camera at the moment. Like, they're focused on, I think, Claire or someone else at the door.
Right.
Like, they're not... It's like an off-camera line.
Yeah.
But, yeah, go ahead.
But, so I think her mother says, like, oh, we're not going to have Christmas. We're going to go skiing or something. And she goes, you're a real gold-plated whore, mother. You know that?
Oh my God. I was like, I had to rewind it and make sure that was actually what she said, because I was like, that's amazing.
You know, if he wrote this, I believe, what was his name? A. Bob Moore?
A. Roy Moore.
A. Roy
Yes.
Moore? I think he should change his name to The Roy Moore.
Yeah, so then one of my other favorites was basically everything that guy, I forget his character's name, but basically everything that guy who was dressed up as Santa said.
Oh, right.
He was just like, ho, 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 bitch, and like, Merry Christmas, you fuck. And there's these like little kids sitting on his lap.
Yeah, there was a lot of weird interactions with children, like Barb feeding that one kid whiskey.
Yes. Yes. I was like, wait, what? Oh, also, my other favorite was when Barb said that there's a certain species of turtle that strews for 3 days without stopping. But then zebras only take 30 seconds.
Right. And she's lucky if she can get 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That whole scene was fucking crazy. I also loved Peta's piano recital. It's just like pounding out this weird, like contemporary classic, like Philip Glassian chaos music. And there's 3 people, there's 3 like, I guess, professors just watching, totally unmoved, totally silent.
Yeah.
And they don't even say like what they say to him. But the next time he sees Jess, she's like, how did the recital go? And he's like, how do you think it went?
Yeah, like, I don't know. How is she supposed to know? I guess because you have a pissy fucking attitude. It went poorly.
You know, I'm horrible.
Right? So another one of Barb's lines is when Mrs. Mack is coming to the door, she said, speaking of professional virgins, here we have the Queen of Vaudeville circa 1891.
That one was great. Another one I have down here is... No, Claire, it's the Mormon Tabernacle Choir making their annual obscene phone call.
Oh my God. Yeah.
They call
that would, yes. So transitioning to, you know, I said like creepiest scenes. So the whole phone call, all of the phone calls were like very disturbing and like I said, kind of a psycho vibe where even from the beginning, I think it's pretty clear that it's just one person that's doing multiple voices. At least I was always under the impression it was one person. And just like doing the higher voices and all of the like screeching. And when he first picks up the phone, it just sounds like he's kind of like fapping.
Yeah.
But then he's like choking and gurgling and like crying and then he's singing the Little Baby Bunting song. It was thoroughly like unsettling to me.
It was impressively unsettling. What also was interesting is that I don't think a contemporary movie would do this, or even a movie in the 80s. They in no way explain anything about him or what he's talking about.
No.
He obviously has like some sort of like trauma about some girl named Abigail, or wait, what was it? Agnes. And then there was a baby, and I'm very curious about what it's all about. None of it is explained.
I know.
And he's not caught.
And then, no, at the end, like, at the end, he's still in the friggin' attic with the 2 dead bodies that no one found. And yeah, he's still doing his little voices and stuff. And so I did get a lot of Psycho stuff from this, just like the rocking chair,
Right.
It seemed almost like it's not clear if it's like a mom, but they're singing like a lullaby, so it kind of, there's clearly some sort of baby involved,
Right.
trauma involving a baby of some sort. But yeah, like none of it's involved or explained. And in a way, it was sort of like baffling, but in another way, I was like, well, that's a kind of a cool choice.
Yeah.
It's unlike a lot of the other, like, I kind of feel like this is one of the movies where the killer isn't caught. I mean, I guess, like in Texas Chainsaw, she just gets away at the end, but
Right.
Leatherface and co. are still out there. But I feel like in a lot of these, like, the killer ostensibly is caught in the end, or at least revealed.
Sure.
In this, you never see his face. You never...
You did see his face.
It was interesting.
You see him a little bit.
Did you?
Yeah.
I thought you just saw, like, his eye.
Yeah. You see his eye, and maybe...
Because they keep his silhouette kind of hidden.
Right.
Because they want you to think maybe it's Peter, and he has that very noticeable mop
Yes.
of hair. So
He looks like a member of the Turtles or another boy band, British invasion band.
the monkeys.
Um,
Well, just so you know, turtles take 3 days to fuck. So.
It's true. Well, they can. She knows because she watched. She's.
She went to the zoo. Yeah.
We are bringing up a few questions. So, do you have any? Why'd you do that? Questions.
Anybody home? Why did you do that? I'll be right back.
Yeah, so, like, Claire goes missing, right? And so at first I thought she was still in her bedroom, and then later it's, revealed she's in the attic. But, like, her dad comes to look for her. The police know she's missing. Like, even if the police are inept, wouldn't you, like, search the whole house? Like, it didn't seem as though the attic was, like, a place that was, like, really hard to get to. Like, Mrs. Mack kind of just opens the door and peeks her head up there.
Yeah.
I mean, to her end. But she only looks up there because she thinks the cat is there.
Right. Yeah, that's my same, generally my same question. Like, when someone is missing and a child has been killed nearby and you're really concerned, do you think you'd, like, really search the house from end to end?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and then he's, like, still there. And, like, also, like, even if you think it was Peter, in the end, like, do a complete comb of the house. I don't know.
No.
It's kind of amazing that those 2 bodies are still up there with the killer at the end of the movie.
It is. Any other questions?
Yeah, so was Claude the cat okay? Did we see him, like, get killed? Everyone kept calling for him, but
I think he was okay. He's a tough guy.
I like to, in my head canon, I think he was okay.
Indeed. My only other question is, so, okay, the killer climbs up to the roof, gets into the attic, which seems dubious at best, taps into the house phone line?
So, yeah, they this is an offhand line.
Right.
They say that Mrs. Mack has her own line.
Oh, so it was Miss Mack's line.
Yeah, and I guess somehow he got I don't know if he was, like, he was sneaking down the ladder and going into her bedroom to make the phone calls and then scurrying back up into the attic, or if he, like, dragged the phone up there or what, but I think that's what they were trying to imply, was that, like...
Oh, but that was a different phone number, and that's why he was able to call them. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because they say something... When they're tapping the phone, they say something like, oh, there's another phone, but it's Mrs. Mack. She has a different line or a different phone number or whatever.
Yeah, and the sheriff's like, all right, well, the calls didn't come to that one, so we don't need to tap that one.
Yes, yeah.
All right. So are you going to give us your 6 degrees of cinema for this one?
Yeah. So Stephanie's 6 Degrees of Cinema. So this one was fun to do. So we have Margot Kidder, who plays Barb. So she was in a HBO, kind of direct to HBO movie called The Glitter Dome.
Oh.
With John Lithgow. And he, of course, starred in Footloose with Diane Wiest. And Diane Wiest was in Practical Magic with Nicole Kidman. And Nicole Kidman was in Eyes Wide Shut, one of my favorite Christmas movies.
Me too.
Directed by Stanley Kubrick, who also directed 2001: A Space Odyssey, which starred Peter himself.
Peter.
Delier. Keir Delier.
I keep wanting to call him Udo Kier, but no, it's a different guy.
Yes, very different. So that's the 6 degrees. We have Margot Kidder, John Lithgow, Diane Wiest, Nicole Kidman, Stanley Kubrick, Keir Delier. And what do we have for your Jack's Pitch of the Week?
Who Miss Mac reminded me a little of is Edna Garrett, the woman who is in charge of the Eastland School, all-girls boarding school, in The Facts of Life. And I think that the Facts of Life house would be a good place for the killer to stop next.
Oh, boy.
It just goes, Charlotte Rae. And...
Did they have an attic?
Well, yeah, it was like a school, so I'm sure they did. It was a boarding school in Peekskill, New York.
Yeah.
So I think Charlotte Rae's passed away. I think she's about 100 years old now. Yeah,
that show is ripe for a reboot.
It is.
So,
yeah,
you're onto something here.
Yeah, give it the old CW redo.
Yeah, I could see it being a show on Hulu.
Okay.
I feel like that's a good venue for it.
Yeah, and maybe just one season will be the guy in the attic, and then they can go on to other, very special, have like a runaway, have like some diet pills, all the.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do the Jesse Spano.
All right.
So.
Good.
So now, since this is our last episode of the year, we wanted to reflect on the first, we didn't do a full year of the pod, but we've got a good 4 months under our belt, and we're doing just a quick roundup of some of our best of the year. So, Jack, why don't you kick it off with the first category?
All right, best kill. And I have 2, actually. Just because it's so fresh in my mind. When the killer in Black Christmas finally kills poor Barb, who although gruff and a hard drinker, has a huge collection of glass animals in her room.
That was, I thought, one of the prettiest shots of the whole movie. It was like her hand crashing through the...
It was like...
Yeah.
It was weirdly artistic, because so like... there was like a prism effect with all the lights, and then he picks up this glass unicorn and stabs her, and like her arm flies up and hits the other glass animals, and it's this whole sort of like shimmering, like I thought it was a scene from Xanadu. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was very beautiful.
And the one that I've remembered since being a kid and seeing it, but when Johnny Depp gets it in Nightmare on Elm Street, and the blood just keeps pouring out.
Like 25 gallons of blood. Yeah, that was intense. So, I mean, a couple that I considered were the Kevin Bacon kill in Friday the 13th.
Yeah, that's a good one.
With the arrowhead up through the bed. And I also... oh, man, I should have written these down. I also really liked the killing of, I think her name was Pam, in Texas Chainsaw, where she gets put on the meat hook.
Yeah.
Like, that was really intense. But my winner, just for sheer comedy, was when Mrs. Voorhees is beheaded at the end of Friday the 13th. Because I just, like, cracked up. Like, they just cut to her, like, powder blue Argyle sweater with the head gone, and her hands are up, like, clutching. That was really great.
Good times. Memory lane.
So, my next category is best setting.
Ooh.
So kind of just like where the movie takes place. And I'm cheating here. I'm gonna do a tie. And this is between Camp Crystal Lake, which I just think is a really cool convention as like a summer camp, because there's, you know, a bunch of different little huts, and so it's kind of a neat setting because, you know, people can get killed and you don't always know, and there's a lot of traipsing back and forth to different buildings, and it's also kind of isolated. And then just for pure enjoyment and beauty and a place I want to go is Summer's Isle from the 1974 Wicker Man, because it looked very bucolic and like everyone was having a real good time except for that puritanical cop. So
Yeah.
what about you?
Well, it's fresh in my mind, but it's also one of my favorite places is Last House on the Left's gritty 1970s Lower East Side, New York. It's just I wish there were more movies in that era.
Yeah, just don't wander into the Stillo
No,
camp out.
you gotta know where to buy top-notch weed, grass.
Turbo grass.
All right, next category is favorite killer.
So there were so many good ones to choose from this year. We had the vampires in Vampires vs. the Bronx. We had Mrs. Voorhees, as I mentioned. But really the one that stood out, takes the cake, really captured my imagination, is Leatherface. He's iconic. He's a great dancer. He's misunderstood.
Just like you.
And
All
he's
of these things are you.
one hell of an interior decorator.
Yes.
Really just trying to do his craft, and these damn kids keep interrupting him.
Yeah, and his...
What about you?
His, never mind. I don't know what I was saying there. Again, Last House on the Left left a mark on me, and, I'm actually going to take the two Wes Craven creations are both really sticking with me. So, Krug Stillo, the animal-like singer, songwriter, heroin dealer,
Dad of the year.
yeah, and then his sort of namesake, Freddy Krueger.
Oh yeah,
two horny dudes who just want to have fun.
Freddy Krueger's great. Also, I have to interrupt this best of the year for a. I'm gonna put you on the spot. This is a gotcha. Did you put your thumb on the scale for the Krug versus Krug survey that I did on Twitter?
No. I did almost go back and
were...
listen again, because I know they say his name, but I couldn't find any of the clips.
Because 3 people voted for your choice. I mean, there were only 4 votes total, and one of them was mine. I was the only person who voted for Krug, so maybe you're right. Maybe it is Krug Stillo.
I abstained.
Well, I definitely j'accused you on Twitter, so sorry about that. And so for our final category, as befitting our final category, is Best Final Girl. And it's gotta be Nancy from A Nightmare on Elm Street. I just thought she was sassy. She was really capable. She set up a bunch of booby traps. She tried really hard to get the cops to listen to her.
Yeah.
She had the ingenuity to go into the dream and lure Freddy out, and doing all of this while dealing with her parents' divorce and her mom's alcoholism. I just thought she was a great final girl.
I actually did not even look at yours, and I also voted for Nancy Thompson. And partly also because I have seen more of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, and she is part of the franchise. So she does go on to other things as well. But her brattiness and her one-liners, specifically, warm milk, ew.
Oh, yeah. Just all of her attitude toward her mom was great.
All right.
So let's get down to final reactions. How did you feel about this movie?
There's some movies where like you don't like it particularly, but you appreciate it. And the beginning was funny, and Barb being drunk and the whole like sorority silliness was fun, but then it really started lagging and getting boring in the middle, and just had that sort of like 70s movie pacing, which sometimes you can get over, but sometimes it's just long and boring. So
yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, I appreciated it, and there were some great moments. Scare factor, though, I gave it, I wrote 2 here, but I'll give it a 3 because the calls are actually disturbing. And in some ways, Peter's reactions are like some of the most weirdly scary parts.
Yeah.
And entertainment factor, I'll give it a 6 out of 10.
So yeah, it sounds like it was sort of middling for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I felt much the same. I mean, I do. It was interesting because, part of the journey of me starting to watch all of these horror movies is kind of noticing the things that I had absorbed just kind of culturally without ever having seen some of these movies. Some of the things about Freddy or Jason or whatnot. And it was interesting watching this and kind of getting some of those things like, the reveal of the call is coming from inside the house, which I kind of was like, wait, are they going to say that in this movie? Towards the end when they're tracing the call, it's like, when's it going to come? When's it going to come? And, it was kind of like, there were some really cool shots, like after the first kill, after he kills Claire, there's this kind of interesting pan around the top of the stairs that goes kind of like, and then I think you see like his leg going up into the attic or something like that. And some of the characters were funny, but I agree, there were some points where it certainly lagged. I think probably the most thrilling, if anything, sequence was that first initial party. That's where you get a couple of Barb's best lines. That's where the creepy ass phone call comes in, which was quite a long call, and he just kept saying it, and I had the captions on, so I got every word of that call. And lots of just like dropping the C word and filthy. Just filthier than I was expecting.
Yeah, that first call was a lot more like sexual than the other calls.
Yes, it was extremely sexual. And it sounded like when they first got the call, they all kind of think it's funny, like he's called before.
Right. And
they're all kind of like, haha. But I don't know, I guess he took tonight to crank it up a notch because they were not laughing at the end.
Yeah, and apparently
and neither was I.
When they filmed that, the director was just sort of like saying sort of similar stuff, but it wasn't as crazy. And then
they like ADR'd it.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And it got and then they had to take a lot of that out when they distributed it internationally.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and also, Peter's whole reaction to Jess saying that she wanted to have an abortion, like he's just, it's very not, the way I would expect any guy to react in the year of 2020, though I'm sure they exist. And then just like the way he's threatening her, and that was very unsettling as well.
Yeah.
So I'd say on the stare factor, and I had a few big jumps, like when you see his hand behind the garment bags in Claire's closet. I kind of jumped. So for stare factor, I think I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Like, I didn't have very many big jumps, but I was just very creeped out by the phone call. And also the fact that they didn't get him in the end.
It's true.
That, like, and
still
poor
out.
Jess was in the house about to, like, go to sleep, and he's still up there in the attic.
He's still out there today.
Yeah, and then for entertainment factor, I think I'd give it the same, a 6. Like you said, it does have some of the, like, 1970s pacing. Like, some of the top scenes go on a little too long, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really care. Like, let's get back to the house. But yeah, so 6 for stare factor, 6 for entertainment factor.
All right. What do we have coming up next?
So next week, we will be talking about the Persian horror film A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. In the meantime, you can give us a review. We'd like you to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. And you can also find us on Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you might listen to pods. Don't be scared.
Yeah, be like me. Don't be scared. If you have any interesting facts about A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, or Black Christmas, or any other horror movies, or you have a suggestion for a movie that might scare us, let us know on Twitter or email us at thehorribleidea@gmail.com, or call us at FELLATIO 22105. It's a new number that we have
exchange,
now. It's a new exchange.
Wow, I really didn't know you were doing that.
Have a night.